Ladies and gentlemen, it is Tuesday, and that means we're fortunate and privileged. That's right. We're white privileged on this show to have Ryan Cristian join us each and every Tuesday. What's happening, buddy? How you doing? Oh, you got no volume.
Interesting intro there. Thank you.
It feels fortunate. It feels fortunate. Then the word privileged fell out of my mouth, and I was like, let's run with it. Let's run with it.
Well, I was just laughing at the KJ, whatever. It's funny. It's like I don't want to say her whole name, but then when I say KJP, it feels like we're giving her some kind of special moniker. So I'm just like Pierre. Like, but that mumbling nonsense. It's like, it's funny that even is regarded as some sort of an answer. So you're asking a question about banks and you're like, well, this administration has done things to do things. That's basically your answer. And you're like, okay, so, but that's not what's happening. You've taken actions, you argue to stable. Well, clearly it didn't work because that didn't happen. So it's like, I wish there was anybody honest that could stand up and be like, is anybody else just like, can we all point out that there's nothing actually happening here? She's just mumbling gibberish at us and we all like act like there's engagement happening. But it's not just her. We know that, but she's the worst I've ever seen.
Well, and I mean, look how they do the only person who's ever stuck his hand up and been like,
right. Oh, that's right.
You ever gonna call on me? And they're like, get out, Simon. We don't.
You man, get out of here.
Hang out. No. It's the way that they've done that dude and the way that he's kind of reacted to it now after however many, not just with Karine Jean Van Damme or whatever, but with Psaki, the way that he was frequently just ignored and shit on, for him to come out and be like, okay, look, here's how this game works. I thought that was kind of cool to where and he wasn't even necessarily throwing colleagues under the bus or anything like that. He was just like, look, it's a carefully managed show. And that's what you guys need to understand. We're trying to pull an answer out of them, but they have their own agenda. And so this is what you get.
And they know if they do the wrong thing, that this is what happens, right? So they all know that. And even if they think they're trying to maneuver within the system's designed, so you can't actually get anything honest. So it's the people that pretend they can work within the system and something like that, they're lying to themselves. And maybe they don't realize it, but we also saw that issue with Biden's little note cards, which I hope people realize that that's not unique to Biden. Right now, I guarantee it's far, 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 far more engaged because he can't tie his own shoes. But other presidents, it's the same thing. We must realize that it's, always that's how the partisanship plays it. This is about Biden only. It's so scripted. It's so managed. And we must know that. But to the point to where it's like literally like, call this person. Here is the question they're going to ask. It's like nobody pretends that's what's really going on. That's pathetic. And go ahead.
No, I was going to say, this is just the thing that consistently drives me crazy, Ryan, is that by pretending that all of these exchanges that we know have been scripted for a very long time are natural, by pretending that the public relations liaisons for the oligarchy are actually our representatives, by pretending that 32 flavors of ice cream is freedom. Right. Yeah, as opposed to the ability to freely travel around the Arctic Basin without showing proof of vaccination. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like by pretending all of this shit, we're kind of here now. And the amount of work that it's going to take to have a functioning parallel structure is significant but doable. But now you've really pinned people into well, if I don't keep pretending, then it's going to suck. And if I do keep pretending, it's really going to suck. But I don't know what that looks like yet. So I guess I'll just stay doing this.
It's a good point because they're also giving them the out by going, okay, fair, we screwed up, but we're doing this for you, just take it on the chin. And it's going to be better for everybody, and it's like, it's sad that we have no, it's like we don't understand ourselves anymore. We don't understand our own history. We don't understand, we look at that narrative and people buy it. But if you just take a step back and look at even just previous administrations, let alone previous, empires, it's obvious this is how this works. We get played on the idea that it's in your best interest. It's for you. Like I'm in the middle of editing a new article for Matt Arrett, and he makes a great, interesting overlap. He has a lot of great work on this from like the Canadian perspective of how the Civil War went and the British influence of it all. And what's really interesting is that from what he's arguing and discussing is that this was a British, basically the Civil War was designed, and there's quotes that make it outlandishly clear where they're basically saying that, well, if we can keep them fighting each other, then they'll be fighting themselves and we don't have to worry about it. And we can work with each side and pit them against themselves. And I'm thinking, well, isn't that just literally what we see on foreign policy from the US government today? So, you can think however you think that translates, whether it's the same people or they just learn from it. The point is it's still happening. It's divide and conquer. And that happens between us at individual levels on the media. It's the same game. So it's interesting.
And it's especially when it comes down to the media sphere. We were talking about this. And by the way, shout out to Matt Arrett. He's phenomenal. I got to hang out with him a little bit on Union of the Wanted last night.
Nice.
It's always fun. He needs to come back on here. The way that they've played certain, I don't know, I guess red herrings with different sections of the independent media to make sure that, like, across the board, all of the people who got into it in the first place, because these people were, in the legacy media, were leading you astray based on personal interest, based on advertising, based on just not knowing how the game works, whatever. They were doing the job wrong. So now all these people who got into it because they're like, look, they're clearly lying to you. Let me try to explain some of this, or here's different research that shows, are caught up so far into the exact same game. Like, well, I've got to get my stuff out, and I've got to be first, and I've got to be this, right, and I've got to be that, and well, that guy's an asshole because, and this guy's a piece of shit because fuck her, but
exactly. It's all incremental. It's all small incremental steps, right? And they know that, like, you may make a choice that's not rooted in some kind of, this is also the problem with people that overzealously assume in that direction, where there are people out there making conflicted choices every day. That does not mean that they're completely compromised or that they even are aware that they're doing something in the direction of some larger agenda, right? I mean, that doesn't mean that we should just ignore it. Ask that question. But this applies to everything we're dealing with. Ask the question. But it's not, if you don't have anything you can prove, it's just not appropriate to go forward and be like, but this is what's happening. That's just stupid. It could be, but the idea ultimately is that, they know that if they get you to go, well, I'll play the game for a greater good. It's like the politicians saying, well, I know how the system works and I'm going to change it from the inside. As long they get you with that, and then it's one compromise and you keep going. And then eventually you look back and you're like, you can not, there's no turning back now. It was one small choice at a time. And now suddenly you're completely, you get to a position where almost you trap yourself with your own audience, your own direction, and then you go back to try and doing that old thing. And we see this with a lot of independent media today. Where
next thing you know, you're getting a boob job and yelling at your pregnant wife to go walk barefoot to the grocery store. It's crazy.
I don't even know what's going on with that whole thing.
I haven't taken a single shot, Ryan, the entire time, and it was sitting there perfectly, and I had to.
I don't even know what's going on with that. I mean, it seems crazy to me, and I think really from an outside perspective, like, there's so much going on. Like, I barely even commented on Tucker Carlson. I'm like, this is in my show. It was interesting, and I had thoughts. But I'm like, I got to the show and I'm like, I ran out of time. Like, these are the least important things going on today, right? Like, it's important to its own degree, but we're talking about all the things going on, Tucker Carlson and the dynamic there. I'm like, it's like the first thing I'm going to throw off the show. But I don't
want to talk about it.
I don't want to. It's not. No, I'm not either. Yeah, but the Crowder thing is just interesting, and we can go past it. It's just that it's, to me, from a surface level, not getting into it perspective, it just speaks to the vitriolic nature of the independent media, if we're still calling it that level. It's like these people, that's exactly the point you were making. What we were saying is that you go in a certain direction, and it's a combination of his own audience, but also just kind of being canceled to a degree, or just get consumed by it. But what I also think is how alarming it is. Like, first of all, what a dum-dum for having a Ring camera, like, basically inside of his house. That's stupid, right? We need to realize, like, get an Amazon cloud system and everything else in your house and pretend like you're still secure. We already see how that works, right? Call the police and, whatever. So that's very concerning to me. But anyway, all of it aside, I think people, what does that have to do with the news and what is reporting? It's just, it seems stupid.
And I noticed this with lefty media a lot, but there's a
Like moral
giant
outrage.
yeah, there's a giant ecosystem that attaches itself to like a barnacle, right? To
Mhm.
the USS media or whatever, and
Right.
all of these little barnacles attach themselves to it. And it's the moral police, it's the react channels, it's the gossip channels, and
Mhm.
nobody's really actually sharing any information other than this person said this about this person, blah, 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 and
Yeah.
like
It's
that's
reality
fine.
TV.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the View with less hosts and an equal amount of intellectual discourse.
Yeah.
Uh,
Right.
you
Right.
know, I,
Yeah, it is sad though because it consumes a lot of attention and people act like it's newsworthy. Like somehow if he is a evil wife beating person or whatever the argument is that somehow in any way influences. Like I mean, you could argue that it should influence to some degree like his decision making process, but facts are facts, man. Like we just the idea that we get into this game where I mean, it's what I was just making the point about with Joe Rogan or even Tucker, right? Asim Malhotra went on Joe Rogan, or actually, I'm not sure if it was an old clip or a new appearance. Either way, it was irrelevant to my point. Was I put out the clip of him saying, here's a study that we've talked about the reanalysis of the phase 3 data from Pfizer and Moderna. It's literally their data. When looked at by independent people, it's like this is dangerous. Like it literally shows a 36% increase just by taking the injection. And his point is, it's like he says it on Joe Rogan and everyone's like, oh my God. And I'm like, we have been literally pointing at that study in independent media, I mean, for since 2022, repeatedly, ad nauseum, like over and over. And yet only then is it like allowed to go forward to a degree. And that's not even the real point. The point is that the people on like the left are already trained to dismiss anything that comes from Joe Rogan. Right. So it's even if Joe Rogan's not involved, it's still this controlled dynamic where we're screaming into the wind to a degree. I think more and more people are following and watching what we're doing, and that's possibly the majority, but we're not changing the mainstream perception of the majority, which is important.
but we are kind of getting there in a couple of ways, and we've talked
Yeah.
about this before. We're now mainstream media is their opening segments are reacting to what independent media has reported and
Yeah.
broke,
Right.
and then the backlash from that is you get rid of Tucker Carlson, or you continue to censor, you make sure that people continue to get deplatformed and all that. I the the whole Crowder nonsense, the way that I saw it, the way that I continue to see it, is that Jerry Springer left us. Okay, Jerry Springer died, R.I.P. Jerry. But because he was on his way out, like all of the essence of the show was just released onto the face of the earth. And a lot of it went through the Crowder household. And this is what we're getting to see. So thank you, Jerry, for one last final show.
I've got
But
some breaking news. You might not know this, but Jerry Springer actually was working with CERN right before he died, and so he stepped through and opened up a portal into the Jerry Springer universe, and that's where we are. That's what happened.
we are now fully in the Springer verse.
Springerverse feels like it, doesn't it?
It really does, man. It really does. Because they taped that show in Chicago, in a handful of friends growing up, where it was like all they were trying to do was scam the producers so they could get on the show. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I'm gonna put his name out here on freaking blast, dude. If anybody knows this guy, Jay Christensen, wonderful human being. Him and his girl managed to get on there over a jacket or something like that. And they just had the time of their freaking lives. And it was so
there was a time in that where I think we've all of us to some degree, it was like always on at that time when you were home, when nothing else was going on. Oops, dropped my pen. But so the point that, that you're watching this show and we all started going, these seem pretty fake. Like this seems pretty staged, or I can't even, how was that even real? Like so ridiculous. And their argument was it was all real, but I think it kind of got exposed that was happening, like more than they realized, that people were kind of like, we'll just, we are a 14-way relationship with different things and, whatever. And they go, oh, that's crazy. Let's get that on. And I wonder if they just didn't really care at first, like it's still getting ratings and so on. But there are crazy people, man. I mean, I think we're really seeing that today.
Jerry himself a couple of different times was kind of like would joke about his show being responsible for the downfall of civilization.
Well,
I
it's
mean,
like Jersey Shore. It leans into the like the lowest, basest level of humanity. It promotes it like to where you get kids that want to be like those people or want to be on Jerry Springer. It's I don't know whether whether I would think that's like an agenda, but certainly could be. To kind of plant those seeds about lowest common denominator.
I gotta say though, man, as a career arc, you can't beat Jerry's. He went from like he was doing like the weather or something on local Cincinnati TV. They
Mhm.
gave him the final thought segment was
Right.
part of his TV thing, where on local television he would do that for like a minute or two, and
Mhm.
then he parlayed that into being mayor of Cincinnati, where he was fired from being mayor of Cincinnati because he bounced, this is true, a check to a hooker
That's perfect.
and
That is
then
present.
went on to start the Jerry Springer show.
Interesting. Interesting. Man, yeah, that is a classic just everything about like you just wonder where like how do you get fired from being a mayor, first of all? Like, so he
Well,
was like,
removed from office
oh,
or
okay,
whatever the
okay.
process is. But yeah.
How
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
that guy's a character for sure, man. But yeah, the whole show thing was, it just got really, really crazy toward the end. Like just I feel like it was staged at the end.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And then they had the did you ever see the movie?
There's a movie? No. Jerry Springer
There
movie?
is a
No.
movie, and it's got I can never remember her name. She's the trailer trash princess actress. She's from like My Name is Earl
Oh, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
um
Presley or something Presley? The blonde
Jamie
hair one?
Presley.
Is that it? Yeah,
Right?
I think so.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Want to say that. Yeah, because she's even got a trailer name. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And but I mean, she's in that movie and she's the same
Yeah, that's her.
character the entire time. Just, shoe averse white trash. And it's, I mean, it's fabulous. It is. There's a black woman that comes out that gives a presentation on Jerry Springer about how she wants to do new classifications of race based on like what because nobody's just 100% anymore, so there's no such thing as just, so she's got a whole classification chart on a chalkboard that she rolls out. It's hysterical, dude. It really
That's
is.
funny.
I and you get the feeling that it was like in the same way that you would hope someone on Idiocracy was
Mhm.
going, has anybody got a bad feeling about how this might turn out?
Yeah.
Somebody on the Jerry Springer movie was like, are we setting up the future for failure? Yeah.
Right. Seriously. But I mean, I think to a degree, I mean, we've always said this, a dumbed down population or, baser instincts, it's easier to control. All they got to do is really get you, it's, in very simple terms at that level, get you to think that it's your choice to, step into, to go. The bottom line is if it's base instincts, all you're worried about is your own self gratification, money, pleasure, whatever, and that's not hard to achieve. Dump these things in front of you as long as you're not paying attention to what's being built around you. So I think there's a level of that, like we see with the movies and all of it. But whether those are that or who knows? But maybe Jerry Springer set the model and they're like, okay, I see how this works. We'll start emulating that. But seriously, that's where we are.
Well, and I mean, look at what was going on at that time, though, man. And I'm talking about late '80s, early '90s, that kind of thing, because you had the KKK sitting in the room in a live studio audience with Geraldo. You had remember when he got the chair smashed over his face and all that kind of.
Yeah.
The Gary Webb went and sat with Montel Williams and Charlie Rangel to
Right.
talk about, all of the, to talk about Freeway Rick and to talk about straight up Iran Contra, Coke arms, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And that's daytime television.
Right.
Like that shit's crazy.
Well, and think of the arc now. Now they've got this new show out. What's it called? Sugar High or Hill or something like that. And it's about literally that story. Now, obviously, they carve off the harsh edges. And so they're not really the, exactly the reality of what happened. But the problem is, we're at a point now where everybody knows, even though we don't, there are people that will act like that's not the true story. When you have this kind of mass media produced thing that comes out, like the story is, well, yes, the CIA literally dumped all of these, crack cocaine and turned into crack cocaine. Freeway Rick being the guy that turned it into that, he was supposedly the one that just came up with it. I doubt that's how that went down. But, and so the point being is that it flooded the market. The point is that it's crazy that we know that today, to the point to where it's on a show, but the arc being it was so hidden, to the point where Gary Webb was killed. Like, isn't that just fascinating in a very macabre way how this even works? I mean, that was not that long ago. And we just sneeze it off today. It's like, whatever. They murdered this guy over their drug running campaign. It's just nuts, man. And it's like, what's even crazier is it seems that we all at some level just kind of know that. And yet for some reason, we don't want to like collectively stand up and be like, pause. They're doing this stuff right now. It's crazy.
And everybody's running around, patting Tucker on the butt for being like, hey, if you talk about Building 7, you'll get fired.
Yeah,
well,
I made that
buddy,
point too.
What did you do to Gary Webb's memory?
Right.
Is that ever going to get brought up? And look, I'm not saying that he's an irredeemable human being if he doesn't address what he said about Gary Webb. I'm just, if you're going to go out of your way to draw attention to Building 7, to be like, hey, look, guys, I'm one of you. Right. This would be a fantastic way to do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it's always important to say that by somebody not doing something it's not, that's an unfair indicate, like consider that, but it doesn't mean therefore that they're not talking about, whatever. I hate that argument where they never bring this up. And it's like, well, it could be what you think, but it could be a lot of other things too. Maybe they're focused on other things. But when people, say things like that go against, I mean, Tucker's had a lot of segments that are crazy to me where you're listening, you're like on cannabis or, whatever else. But so the point is that in that point specifically, which I don't think was extremely new, but that's irrelevant. My point was when I pointed at that show clip, it's like, okay, who else did this? Do we remember people out there who pretend, or who at least even half the Republican Party are now beginning to be aware that Trump was not on their side, right? He, during the election, was like 9/11, Building 7, JFK, and just all these buzz conspiracy words. And then what happened, guys? How can we not stand back and see, like, even the JFK thing didn't actually pan out. There are still sealed files, which is exactly what I keep telling people is they give you a little bit of a nod. Here's some more Las Vegas files. Talk about it for a month. They mean nothing. It's very clear how they use this. So when he stands up and does it, it's the same thing I got from it. Let's, look at that. We can't talk. So where was all the conversation? Where was his in-depth segments on that during Fox News? Oh, okay. Well, that means Fox was in some way controlling his content. Isn't that the opposite of what he says? Or he chose not to talk about it his entire career until now. Why isn't that a red flag to anybody? I don't know why we keep falling for this stuff. It just seems like another insider who steps out and goes, I'm going to step in to save the day. There's 100,000 people who aren't on the inside who have been screaming about this for a decade. Why we need someone like Tucker, you know what I mean? Or Trump. It's because the core party who is aware that they're playing the game tricks the other people that want to be a part of the team. That's what happens over and over and over. Damn it, man. But I think people are seeing through it. I see lots of even Republicans going, I don't trust Tucker Carl, like good. We shouldn't trust any of them on any side.
And then at the same time, what we're all kind of watching to see what happens is where he takes his, fairly substantial audience. What happens with that, and not just in terms of like losing from Fox, but in terms of bringing people into like a different part of internet subculture.
Well,
that'll be interesting. Go ahead. Sorry.
We don't have to get into it if you don't want to, but just since you bring that up, that one point, it's interesting. I think somebody actually I forget, somebody prominent was like, so when are you starting your new show on Rumble? Like kind of making a joke about, like that's where, but maybe that's not too far off. But then the CEO of Rumble commented was like, I don't have any plans to do blah, blah, blah. It's like, and it's just kind of funny, but it's funny how it's both Elon and all these people love to respond. But you can't get, what's interesting on a quick side note, and then we'll come back to Tucker, is that I just saw Mark Dice call out Rumble, or at least recently. I don't know how old it was, but he has this video where he's going, they won't respond to me. They won't even let me work with that. And I'm like, that's really interesting. He's nothing if not conservative, right? And I was like, so Rumble, I don't know why people trust Rumble right now. It blows me away. There's obviously something, I'm seeing more stuff coming out about whether the views might be completely artificial. I mean, it's like, I'll get into that later, but
well, Yeah, no, I'm for a second because Nathan Stoppelman from Lift the Veil, who has the merch
Stoltman.
company,
Yeah.
the Stoltman, yeah,
Yeah.
that does stuff for you and stuff for Slow News Day. Shout out to truthclothing.io.
Yeah.
He was showing some evidence on Twitter the couple maybe last week or something
That
where Rumble was really messing with him. They've done it to me. They've done it to you.
really
Go.
graceful said something about it, right? He's the one that actually shared that with me as well. I didn't know if he wanted it to be put out there. I guess if it's on Twitter, then that's fair. But so it was, but he is investigating to a degree, and so good for him. And I'm interested because, like I've said 100,000 times, and you and I agree on this, it has every single choke point that YouTube does. Amazon Cloud Server, like, why does it make sense to anybody that the argument is that YouTube did this because they're being pressured by advertising and the big companies and the above structure, which literally currently exists over Rumble, and we can't allow it to be on YouTube, but they don't care over here on Rumble? How does that even remotely make sense? If the point is that the content is not supposed to be seen, like, and I should make a point, they went past advertising, obviously. Now they're just going, oh, it's medical misinformation. Oh, it's creating disinformation, right? So they care about it here, but not there, even though videos on Rumble are getting millions and millions of views. Why people, like, that's just a logical point that needs to, maybe there's an answer that I don't know, but clearly there's something going on there that doesn't add up,
Yeah.
Very weird.
Yeah.
But back to Tucker, the interesting part about it is that, where he ends up going with this and what ends up happening with the shifting of the audience will, like you said, really end up kind of, this is the recreation of the media. We saw Don Lemon and all these people. And what's weird is, Don Lemon got fired because he's dumb and bad at his job. Tucker got fired because he's telling the truth. And of course, the other side thinks the opposite, right? That's just so stupid. I think they're both manipulators. Obviously, if I had to pick one that was giving more information, I think Don Lemon is a ridiculous person as long as a manipulator. That's just personal opinion, nothing to do with left versus right. But it's interesting of the shakeups. We keep seeing all these shifts in the corporate media. I think that's what this is. And I think that's what Tucker will do, is start some new thing. I saw some breaking news. He's going to go work with OAN, and then nobody followed up. So I guess that guy was scamming people. It's like, there's so much of that grifting happening today, but it got like 100,000 views and everyone's like, oh, yay. It's like, did you vet it? No. Hooray.
Of course not.
Yeah.
It just made my dopamine go off.
Yeah. Right,
That's all I know anymore.
Press the button. Get the pellet.
Yeah.
Beep.
Oh man, we've talked about this for a long time now, and I've gotten some significant pushback for understanding that the media landscape was shifting, that traditional media is a dead or dying format, that everything is moving over here, and that you can't just only have, well, there was, Dan Rather and what did Connie, whatever the fucking anchor people are on 3 networks and a couple cable hosts, and that's the allowable parameters of acceptable conversation in the legitimate media. Well, that's done. It's a dead freaking format. Everything's online now. So you have to have people that are outsiders from that traditional media space who are going to set the allowable parameters of conversation, whether that's a beloved game show host and fight commenter with the most popular podcast on the planet, or whether that's Russell Brand or Glenn Greenwald or Tucker Carlson, Dave Rubin, Steven Crowder, those kind of, all of these guys are coming from a very mainstream, very traditional space.
A lot redacted, but to be clear, I'm not implying that all these people are necessarily compromised or even doing bad work, right? But it's interesting to see that shift. And it could be that one, they also saw the shifting media landscape and they switched because they just want to get away from the broken system. So that's what I mean. We should never assume, right? Based on it's about facts, content, show discernment, question everybody, right? But it's interesting because redacted is one of those where these people are kind of shifting back, YouTube and independent, and they all come from money and larger corporate stuff, and so it's just concerning to me. And how also, and this is the one thing that stands out to me. And again, this is not proof of anything, but how does it really make sense for Brand or any of the rest of these people to be making the exact same arguments that we get censored for right now? And it's being allowed. Now, one argument could be, well, it's just that profitable for them. right? We'll allow Brand to do it because he plays the game or whatever. And like, he works YouTube and they'll not say certain words and they offshoot it to Rumble when they're going to say certain things. And so they go, okay, we'll allow it. That's possible, I guess, that they're, money is really a driving factor for these companies. So maybe they're willing to compromise on their misinformation agenda and stuff, or there's more going on. You know what I mean? Or nothing. But I think it's very weird, isn't it? And it's like and this was at a time like in the midst of the biggest censorship that was happening, like in the height of the COVID censorship. A lot of these people were out there saying things that we were 2 weeks later and getting absolutely no censorship. That doesn't make sense to me. And all I'm saying in all of that is that we need to be asking the question. This is always right. Just go, could this be something that's driving us into a controlled discussion where we're not factoring in all the information? They're not giving us source material, that it's a two-party paradigm argument when really there's more to the story. Like all of these things are everywhere today. And this, you talk about it all the time.
It's just, it's wild to me to consistently see this shit happen and go, hey, look, this is what's happening, and we'll talk about it, and a handful of other people will talk about it, and the initial response from the same people who wind up covering all the stuff that we already did is, oh, that's nonsense, that's ridiculous, or you're just being cynical, or this is some black pilled thinking or whatever. And we're not even necessarily making declarative statements.
That's the main point.
We're just saying based on what's already happened, based on a clear pattern, based on statements made about what these people want to do in the future. This looks like a continuation of XYZ.
Or exactly. And the main point there is that we're not, coming over the saying that's ridiculous. Well, what's ridiculous? I didn't say anything that was happening. I said, ask a question. It's ridiculous to ask a question. That seems pretty stupid, right? Like the pushback of even the insinuation that it could be the case. That's crazy, right? Really think about that. Like the idea that we can't go, well, okay, in the height of Trump's administration, right? They're pretty much everybody that supported him, you couldn't even suggest the possibility that maybe he was involved with some, basically sent by God, and you can't challenge that, whatever, by some of the more extremes. But people just didn't want to hear it. People close to me included. But now, as things tapered down, well, clearly half of the people now are like, well, DeSantis and Trump was lying to us, and he still supports the vaccine. So it's like, reflect on that. The same people that said, no way, are now going, yeah, I know it now. And will even still maintain both of those arguments. Well, at that time, that was the right thing. And now this is the right thing. It's like, that doesn't make sense, right? He was either lying to you, he's a liar, or not. Just the point is, as always, question it, Don't trust it.
Can I ask a favor of you real quick? My neighbor who's going to be driving me to the airport, who does blunt force wisdom with me, Teal, she's going to come over here in a second. And I realize that I need to switch out mics. Do you have like a couple of minute video thing that you could throw up for a second while I do that? Unlock my door and plug some different shit in.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. I'll find something.
Yeah, no problem, man. And thank you guys for hanging out. It is going to be a shorter show. I kind of explained this a little bit. I'm hopping on an airplane this morning. Going to be doing shows from California for like the next week, and then I'll be back here in Vegas.
Good. This is a 6 minute and 27 minute thing I just made.
Oh, okay. Well, cool.
So I went over my show yesterday. It's called what was it again? The full title, hold on, I'll tell you right now. It's the Charles Lieber Connection, I think is what I called it. And it's from nanotechnology to COVID-19 to technocracy. And so I
wanted to talk to you about this today anyway. So
let's get into it. So then this clip is just a montage of 6 minutes of just showing you the time, the connective points from World Economic Forum to all of it. And we can talk about it when you get back if you want to go ahead and play it. Right now, or okay.
Let's also be clear.
Are you still there, Steve? Remove my view from the screen so it goes full screen if you're still there. If not, we'll play it.
The future is not just happening. The future is built by us.
The whole idea that humans have, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over. Today, we have the technology to hack human beings on a massive scale. Yeah, I mean, everything is being digitalized. Everything is being monitored. In this time of crisis, you have to follow science.
Decarbonization of the economy.
Where are they traveling? How are they traveling? What are they eating? What are they consuming on the platform? So, individual carbon footprint tracker. Stay tuned. We don't have it operational yet, but this is something that we're working on.
I mean, my top recommendation, honestly, would be just to have a carbon tax.
It's often said that you should never allow a good crisis to go to waste, because a crisis is an opportunity to also do good reforms that in normal times people will never agree to. But in a crisis, you see, we have no chance. So let's do it. Surveillance. People could look back in 100 years and identify the coronavirus epidemic as the moment when a new regime of surveillance took over, especially surveillance under the skin, which I think is maybe the most important development of the 21st century, is this ability to hack human beings, to go under the skin, collect biometric data, analyze it, and understand people better than they understand themselves. This, I believe, is maybe the most important event of the 21st century. By hacking organisms, elites may gain the power to re-engineer the future of life itself. Because once you can thing, you can usually also engineer it.
Natural selection is replaced by intelligent design. The era of inorganic life is now beginning.
In the coming decades, AI and biotechnology will give us godlike abilities to re-engineer life and even to create completely new life forms. We are about to enter a new era of inorganic life shaped by intelligent design. Our intelligent design.
Nobody will be safe if not everybody is vaccinated.
Are you vaccinated, if I
Yes.
may ask?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm very pro-vaccination.
Yeah.
I believe the science is unequivocal.
The difference of this fourth industrial revolution is it doesn't change what you are doing. It changes you. If you take genetic editing,
Right.
just as an example, it's you who are changed. And of course, this has a big impact on your identity. Can you imagine that in 10 years when we are sitting here, we have an implant in our brains, and I can immediately feel, because you all will have implants, and we measure your brain waves, and I can immediately tell you how the people react, or I can feel how the people react to your answers. Is it imaginable? Just think of sensors planted into our brains.
Basically implanted in your skull. So, but it would be flush with your skull. So you basically take out a chunk of skull, put the Neuralink device in there. You'd put the electrode, you'd insert the electrode threads very carefully into the brain.
To build basically an interface to the brain.
Yeah. Electrode to neuron interface at a micro level.
Okay, what is it? Like I'm gonna have like a plug in my head that's gonna fit into a hard drive? Like, or how does that work?
Yeah. A chip and a bunch of tiny wires.
This would be implanted surgically. And it would do what? Could you input? Could you download Jim?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What?
The long-term aspiration for Neuralink would be to achieve a symbiosis with artificial intelligence.
What we have seen so far, it's corporations and governments collecting data about where we go, who we meet, what movies we watch. The next phase is the surveillance going under our skin. COVID is critical because this is what convinces people to accept, to legitimize total biometric surveillance.
One of the things that I think is so essential to free and open societies is freedom of thought. And up until now, the conversation we've been having is around freedom of speech. Once we can access people's thoughts and access people's emotions, we have to create a space that enables people to think freely.
What the fourth industrial revolution will lead to is a fusion of our physical, our digital, and our biological identities. It is important to use the COVID-19 crisis as a timely opportunity. So people assume we are just going back to the good old world which we had, and everything will be normal again in how we are used to normal, in the old fashion. This is, let's say, fiction. It will not happen. The cut which we have now is much too strong in order not to leave traces. The future is not just happening. The future is built by us.
Hey, so Ryan, this is my neighbor Teal. Teal, this is Ryan Cristian.
How are you?
Not bad. How are you?
Good. It sounds like your mic's picking her up.
Oh shit, I hate that.
No worries.
Hi, Ryan. I'm
Hey.
Tia.
How are you? So blunt force wisdom, huh? That sounds fun.
Yeah, we talk about, anything.
Yeah. All right.
A lot of trannies, though.
What's that?
We bash on a lot of trannies, though. That's
Oh, yeah.
seems to be one thing
Okay.
for sure. My favorite thing that I just saw yesterday, I think I saw it last night. My boo Riza. Riza said, everybody's transitioning into something except for a good human.
Yeah. Seems that way.
Seems that way.
Yeah.
Check that other mic real quick.
Are we back in?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep, he says he thinks so. Did you see that clip from the New Zealand, we might put a chip in you clip? Or the is it Australian or New Zealand?
Well, they've got it in Sweden now,
Okay.
the chip thing.
Mm-hmm. I think it's Australia. There's this Asian girl saying, I got everything in my wrist.
Okay, so that
Oh, yeah.
happened too.
I'm not sure if that was somebody was saying that was staged or something, but I didn't get a chance to look into it. But it kind of felt like it was a little bit,
It did seem like little commercially, little gimmicky.
Yeah.
But hear the criteria.
But it's definitely putting forward a message, I think, that is legitimate. But this is what I would call, if let's say that was faked and put forward as real, I would call that lying for your truth. Where you lie about something that is happening in order to reach people. Like, that's still dishonest, though. But I definitely think what she's showing is not just a possibility, but already happened in China, right? Literally people are being shut off, from different forms of those kind of IDs, and it's crazy.
No, most definitely. And it's kind of like a play on that Hollywood thing, art imitates life. We've watched so many, from Terminator in the 90s to Bicentennial Man, and I'm just saying AI.
Bicentennial Man.
I really like that
Bicentennial
Robin
Man.
Williams movie. Okay.
Well, it is about a
robot.
Yeah, it is about like a robot and the whole integration with the human species. I mean, that is, it's clearly what they seem to be trying to justify, talking about an AI Bill of Rights and all this stuff, where it's it's weird.
Thank you.
Concerning.
Well, I just saw before we went on that a Utah company beat Elon Musk to implanting 50 people with a neural chip.
Yuck. Yeah, that's what I was
that's
playing. That was in that clip right there. Just that whole overlap with not just the World Economic Forum direction, but that's where my show got into, is the Charles Lieber part of it, right? Where his foundational research is not just the foundation in part for the injections, but also the whole direction that Elon Musk and all that stuff is going. The brain machine interface, the implantable mesh, literally via a syringe. That's what freaked me out, is that the study was showing in 2015, and now he's still, this is what people don't know. Lieber supposedly got arrested for this treasonous thing. He spent 2 days in jail and they gave him time served. And he's been working on research involved with coronavirus and everything else ever since, nonstop. Miriam's the one that put that in front of me, the newest one from 2023. And he's literally talking about syringe injectable mesh in regard to certain, you can call it surveillance, but it's more like data surveillance. But the one of these older articles talks about using the retina and the visual cortex. So they're literally arguing you can do this and be able to at least relay information of visual data. That's just terrifying to me. So all I'm saying there is, we should ask the question of whether that may very well be something that's being experimented on people right now, but just to show that the work is foundationally about nanotechnology and the genetic direction, not really about helping people. You know what I mean? And this is just how it's applied. It's very concerning.
We were talking about this just a little bit before you came in this morning, where the wearables were just a sort of a measure of conditioning for people to get used to the fact that technology is going to be able to do the diagnostic, close to their skin. So it's just one step away from on top of the skin or against the skin to under the skin, and then your diagnosto nanobots will be able to relate to whatever healthcare general server will then go through its list of symptoms and be like, oh, well, the drone with your medication is on the way. Go ahead and give yourself the self-administering vaccine that has the little needles on it. That's a patch that you just put in that through your skin then releases the contents of the vaccine.
I believe that involved the quantum dot technology, right? The quantum dot tattoo was what that was called, right? In regard to the little patch they put on, which is interesting because the quantum dot company, where that one of the foundational parts of that is, I believe, Nanosys Inc., which was founded by Charles Lieber. Interesting.
So, I like the fact that you brought up the wearable thing, and then you were bringing up.
You may have to yell into this. I'm going to move.
You can hear it's just a little bit removed. It's okay. I mean, I can hear it fine.
Now, I tell everybody I've been blind my whole life. My left eye is Ray Charles, my right eye is Helen Keller, and I've been told many a times that LASIK will not correct my sight 100%. And to bring it all the way around from the eyes to the being able to see through data and stuff. I remember I was a Snapchat fanatic, and they started dropping Ray-Bans. Like I said, I'm so blind, I can't wear wire frames. I can only wear Ray-Bans. But they started dropping Ray-Bans where they could take pictures and see where you were at. They were literally saying, hey, these are some Snapchat glasses. You know what I'm saying? Wear these to your next festival and you can take the pictures from your glasses. You can enjoy your memories from, not even having to take your phone out. Right. And for me, that was one of the first ones when I was like, damn. So
and then I bet you they
my eyes, but y'all can do this.
Yeah, exactly. And I bet you that there is, you could tell me there was probably like a connective part of it where it was like Wi-Fi or you connect to the internet. And you can upload,
I'm saying, like Bluetooth, and it's all downloaded. And that's the thing that I'm saying. It's going from you to a cloud device, over the internet. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, we should ask the question of whether or not they could spy through that. Right? I thought that was your implication, right? Like, yeah, that's crazy because obviously that's possible. And then it's funny how we never ask or care anymore about the obvious, provable, scientifically proven danger of Wi-Fi being right next to your eyeball or in your ear, like they do with the earbuds. That's crazy. I can't believe people do that today. Like, we talk about the Wi-Fi from your router and how serious that is, and people are jamming these Bluetooth devices in their ears. It's just like, you can see you're hurting yourself.
All day long, you'll see them I've just finished flying, through the airports. I'm seeing everybody got the same AirPods. They all got the same color ones. We all got the AirPod Pros. We all gotta be matching.
Gotta be trendy.
And I'm like, well,
is there a dumber fucking song in existence right now than Kesha's TikTok song? No. It's just on the fucking face of the goddamn earth. No.
God, man, I'm so not in touch with pop culture right now. It's just funny. Like, I don't even know what that is. I don't even listen to the radio anymore. I used to be, like, just by default, just because you're listening and immersed in it. But it's
Ryan,
weird.
You may not know this, my friend, but I'm from the streets. But no, dude, it's fucking this song's terrible, and it is. It's like the personification of TikTok culture, and it's called TikTok, and it's just bad.
Most
you brought up
music is for me. Go ahead.
You brought up the quantum dot, and I saw this, I think, over the weekend, where IBM and Moderna teamed up to put AI quantum computing to work on mRNA technology.
Right, exactly. Here,
so they've got their let's see. We're excited to partner with IBM because they don't have any sort of past that would denote ill behavior.
Eugenics history or anything with testing research, of course not.
Develop AI models to advance mRNA science, prepare ourselves for the era of quantum computing, ready our businesses for these game-changing technologies.
Right. Yeah, well, so this is
Okay,
this
so
this one.
Moderna-
Go ahead.
Go
Go ahead.
ahead.
Whenever you're done. Go ahead. I just want to throw that in there for the next segment.
Say Moderna gets access to IBM's generative AI model. Generative AI describes algorithms used to create new content based on the data they've been trained on. So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, what's interesting on that point too is Moderna, at least the way they framed it is the academic backing of Moderna. That's Bob Langer, who is one of the central roles in the COVID-19 direction, and he is Charles Lieber's directly tied to him. So you can just see all that really needs to show is not that there's some grander story, there could be, but just that this whole thing is interconnected, right? This wasn't some independent thing. It's like you can see how the work that was done that had nothing to do with vaccination has just been like roughshod jammed into this, it's hurting people, whether or not it was the agenda that be medical forward or this was just an experiment, I don't know. But you can bring that up. This is the study of just the quantum dot, biocompatible near is that infrared? Yeah, infrared quantum dots delivered to the skin by microneedle patches, record vaccination. And so the quantum dot part of it is larger technology. So they use quantum dots in, I think this is one of them right here. This is what I thought was really strange, by the way. So this group, I can't find the page. I don't want to make you guys wait. I had all this. The overlap to the technology for COVID-19 is very clearly tied in with stuff that just doesn't seem to be connective. And overall, I'm really worried about, to bring it back to nanotechnology, that, that something's already happened. Look, if first of all, just to put it out there, if nanotechnology, let's say, was deliberately released or accidentally got out, we would have no idea. They would lie about it. We would have no clue. And why would they ever tell us that? My argument would be they would eventually roll out some version that we could see and discuss and act like that was the beginning of this. And then once we get to a point where we can retroactively prove that we have nanotechnology in our bodies, well, that's because of what we roll. No, it's been there for 10 years. It's like geoengineering, right? Or even longer. So I'm genuinely concerned that either through this will be the last one I'll bring up for this, because this is what really blows my mind every time I bring this up. And I brought this up every time I talk about this in the context of COVID-19 is Charles Lieber's work on the virus-sized transistor.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And this is wild to me. This is 2011. And here, let me do this just so I can see. I love this new highlighter I have. The other thing used to refresh on me all the time. This one just stays there. See that? I just refresh the page. So it says here, Charles Lieber and his colleagues used nanowires to create a transistor so small that it can be used to enter and probe cells without disrupting intracellular machinery. In 2011, these nanoscale semiconductor switches could even be used to enable two-way communication with individual cells, actually communicate with living organisms. And it says, but when the team, basically they had a problem. It was hurting people, hurting the cells rather. But guess what? When the team in 2011 coated the hairpin nanowire with a fatty lipid layer, starting to sound familiar? This is the nanolipid particle solution for the injection and how they argued they made this work today. The device was easily pulled into the cell via membrane fusion, a process related to when cells engulf viruses and bacteria. Now, the part that I want to focus on is, like he says here, he explains this is important because it indicates that when a man-made structure, like a virus-sized transistor, is so small as a virus or bacteria, it can behave the way biological structures do. So we know if this part, it talks about the brain machine interface and how this overlaps. So there's the overlap to that with Musk and everything else. But again, it says when scaled down, the difference between digital and living systems blurs so that you have the opportunity to do things that sound like science fiction, things that people have only dreamed about. So my point is, it's like we talk about these and go, oh, that's crazy. Well, yeah, he's telling you these things sound crazy. In 2011, they were doing these things with the same technology. And it's like, so I'm worried that this is either like, why wouldn't this potentially be like what COVID-19 is? That they were testing something and got out of control around Fort Detrick, and it went to the nursing homes and spread to China and the World Military Games, and whoa, and it just goes everywhere. I'm just theorizing, right? But it's possible this is what we're talking about. And then overlap that with geoengineering, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, but are you, Ryan? Because, I watched the movie Contagion. That came out well before coronavirus, and that shit sounded pretty fucking plausible, man.
That was the John Cusack shit?
Yeah. That was
Utopia.
that's Utopia. Contagion is the one with Matt Damon and Lawrence Fishburne with the fucking bat in the pig, and they were like, "Oh, the bat shit in the pig food, and the pig ate the bat."
Well, see here, that could very well be the planting of this idea through predictive programming before we get to this COVID narrative to basically cover this bigger story. Or not, right? But that could be possible where they just dump this out there, and more than there's probably been 15 different outbreak and all these different movies that have been priming us for this concept. And then and you can really get into these past discussions. Dr. Boyle will tell us that almost all of these are bioweapons, and he's the founder of the Biowarfare Act they still use. So he's not a ridiculous conspiracy theorist, And so you wonder if all of this has been some sort of experiment, and then this begins to really open the door for the conversation of whether they're even really there, right? Terrain, germ theory, which I very truly consider, and I think is a conversation we should be having. I just don't think it's fully fleshed out yet, right? But there's something to this. But go ahead. Back to the original point. This could be circulating around us right now. We wouldn't even know.
No,
that scares me.
And I like how you brought up the fact that you were saying that, like they said so many years ago, this was like science fiction. Like, 2011, like this is make believe and stuff. But I could only imagine, me being a chef, how farmers back in like the 30s tilling their crop, thinking like, man, if only we had a way to make more. Now we got GMO. GMO slid into the scene like nobody's business. I don't even know when it actually became a problem. You know what I'm saying? It just
from
like
the very beginning,
from the jump. You know what I'm saying? We all knew it was bad from the jump, but like it didn't become a major problem until the moms eating avocado toast got tired of gluten.
Something like that.
But also it became a problem when we in the comfortable West started to realize that, it didn't help them at all. In fact, it made them more food insecure. Okay. But too late. We're already on 14 other agendas, and now we're letting the same people who are involved with that failure work on another genetically modified organism they're putting in your body. But trust them this time because it'll work.
Yeah, they'll get it right eventually, right? They'll figure it out.
The amount of leeway that your average corporate mass murderer gets from the public, as opposed to the amount of leeway that you or I get when we mispronounce a word.
If you misspell it on this interweb with these goddamn spelling Nazis,
let alone get like half a fact wrong.
Woo.
Right.
Did you source it?
Fucking
better not be Wikipedia.
Owen Benjamin had a meme up the other day, and it was like the blonde like Chad dude, and he was saying life is beautiful, and then it had the NPC troll character going source.
Well, you know why I hate that meme actually though, because that in and of itself is an undermining point to stop us from asking for source material. You know what I mean?
Really
like,
is. It really,
there's two parts to that. You do have the side of this where you're putting what it actually is a misrepresentation of that side, in my opinion, where they're asking, you put down, like, let's say The Last American Vagabond, and they go, oh, that's not a source. Or you put down the British Medical Journal and they go, oh, that's been debunked. That source is no longer valid. So you're just picking and choosing. That's what that is. On the other side of it, though, as you guys know, there's lots of people out there floating all kinds of screenshots and nonsense that may be true and may not be true when they know they've got the link and they just don't do it. And it's like, okay, well, that to me tells me it's either about you getting the focus, you and not the truth, or however you look at it. But then to add to that, somebody told me today, at least their opinion is that by adding links on Twitter, and this kind of makes sense because they want you not to go anywhere else. Elon really leaned into that with Substack and everything else, that it lowers your SEO on Twitter. That actually makes sense to me. So now, but then still, so now you're playing the game to get a little more click, a little more pellet out of pressing the button a few more times. And you're playing the game from within the system. Don't fall for these traps. Stick, do what you think is right at all costs. Like, that's why I did it into the ground with YouTube, right? Get censored, make them do it. It's like the idea that we start self-censoring to be worried and tiptoeing around it. I understand it. I just don't agree with it.
Get banned.
I told Ryan like years ago in terms of YouTube that I'd been thrown out of better bars by bigger bouncers.
Thank you. I've been thrown out of better places than this.
And I'm I'm not leaving until I'm being physically removed. That's just how this party's gonna go. I'm not sorry about the mashed potatoes. No.
Right. No. We are going down on this pirate ship. That's the point. It's like it's gonna be continued pirate streams until that stops itself.
That's a roach joint. This one is not a roach joint. I just had a whole bunch of roaches and I didn't know what to do with them. I was gonna leave for a week. I didn't want them sitting there, and I was like, "Fuck it, you've never
You've never taken your roaches and putting them in a bong?
I mean, I sometimes do, but like roach weed through a bong has an extra element of bite to it. That
It's all the resin in the paper as well.
yeah. Well, I'll break them up and then roll a new joint.
What I'm saying is you take the actual end of the joint, poke it right in the hole, and you're smoking. Yeah, that's smart. It's like a utility.
See, I've over the last however long I lived in California, I always put a filter on the joint. And so if you do that with a bong, you wind up running the risk of all too often smoking cardboard. And so I've gotten out of that habit. But yeah, back in the day, absolutely, you put a whole joint in a bong in one of those 6 foot motherfuckers. You know, just stand up on the couch, get a full hit like a freaking idiot. We had a 6 foot. I very, very briefly went to Purdue University. And we had a 6 foot bong that we would kind of like dress up and walk around from house to house party to house party with us. And it was like half Invisible Man looking thing.
It's funny. I did something similar for Halloween one time. I went as I it was like just a hippie, but I went as like what I would have been like if I was born in the 60s, kind of like a joke, and I had the fake dreads and the whole thing. And glad some of my closest friends didn't. I walked in the party and they were just like asking who the fuck is that guy? Like, why is he here? And it's like, oh, it's Ryan. It's like, oh, you didn't even know. The point is I had a huge bong like tied around like with a strap that I carried around and like a backpack full of it. I just kept giving bong loads out to everybody, like just for fun. It's funny.
Heck yeah. I'm trying to see if it doesn't jump out at me. Okay, here we go. I'll do this because I was kind of talking about it yesterday. Stop sharing. I found a picture recently. In fact, it's this fucking shirt. This is the whole ass reason I have this shirt. Because I had to do a Halloween party thing. Let's see. Come on. Why are you doing this? Asshole.
I love Halloween.
That's me.
Shut the fuck up, Steve.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. You look like like a character from a sitcom.
Right. Right. Those pants were jamming, boy. Those pants were jamming.
You're going to a Pimps and Hose party or something. That's I remember that. That was fun. Just like the look, like the old velvet go to your grandpa's closet and you're all good.
Heck yeah. Oh man. The parrot, like you need a jacket that looks like you just broke into somebody's house and skinned a couch.
Yes.
I'm going outside today.
Ain't not like a good, rug looking ass fucking embroidered jacket.
I am going to go hunt down every Naga in existence. Remember the Naga hide shit?
What's that? Say it again.
The Naga hide shit. It was like almost leather.
No, I don't remember that.
Pleather?
It was pleather before pleather.
Pleather had a predecessor?
It was called Naga hide.
I don't remember that.
That sounds terrible.
Oh, dude.
That sounds like it was made out of Nat Turner skin. Okay.
What is Naga? I mean, it doesn't even pop up when you look for it. How weird. Oh, there it is. Artificial leather.
Yeah.
Knit fabric.
70s.
Oh, guess what? That's funny. Get this. So Naga hide is an American brand of artificial leather. Naga hide is a composite knit fabric backing an expanded polyvinyl chloride coating. You gotta love that, man. So if you don't know, polyvinyl chloride is the PVC pipe, but it's dangerous. It's the vinyl chloride is what burns these pallets.
Yeah.
It's the asbestos of clothes.
Yeah.
Right. But right now they're actually trying to they're going, we're finally going to deal with the lead piping problem that's you've been dealing with your entire lives that we pretend we care about. But we're going to switch out to PVC pipe. And now there's companies going, or like health groups going like, are you crazy? Like that's changing one problem out for another is probably the whole point.
Have you seen the meme where it's like Washington and then it's like a younger version and then it's like the youngest version and they're all pointing at each other like Spider-Man? And it's like, I got asbestos poisoning. I got lead poisoning. And then the youngest one says, I got microplastic poisoning.
Yeah, right.
I wonder if next going to be micro air. I don't fucking know. What the
something. Yeah, nano poisoning. I mean, it's going to be something. It's funny how not funny, but it's sad how it's just one. And I think you can in each case you can actually prove that the moment they had allowed the problem didn't care. And then when they had a reason to justify something new, they make up the narrative. Hey, we'll put fluoride in your water. It's going to save us all from and then you find out 10 years later, it's like, well, they knew this was dangerous. It's just like, man, we need to start learning our lessons. It's the same
They
thing.
always know it's dangerous. That's why they test it in the first place. Have we not learned that part of it? That's the biggest part. If it's dangerous, you test it. If it's good to go. What the fuck is the scientific fucking method?
No, it's we have a product that we need to get to market. We need to get to market at warp speed.
Yes.
So instead of doing what we would normally do for anything else, we're going to put $7.5 billion into a propaganda campaign, and we're going to break everyone psychologically so that they shame their cousin or their sister for making a medical choice based on past performance of manufacturer, not propaganda. I mean, that's all I was trying to explain to people. I'm making this choice based on past performance of manufacturer.
Yes.
Right. That lies
loyalty,
and
it's loyalty. You know how many people still decide to buy Walmart shit? Don't get me started.
And
I know the government's listening anyway, but I just want them to know, like, if they ever have the job opening for the one person that says, throw it out to the public, I would like to apply for that job. It seems anybody can get it because y'all gonna throw it out to the public anyway. So just let me scream it in the back of the boardroom then, please.
Right.
The other point to add to that, what you were saying is the EUA part of it, the reason that they were able to make that legal argument, right? That it was, like the idea that this is the joke I've made the entire thing throughout COVID. And it's really, again, it's funny, but it's actually pretty sad, is that they constantly said, we are going to do this thing dangerously for your safety, right? We are going to rush through this trial for your safety. That's actually what their argument boils down to, right? Because they're going, well, COVID's so dangerous, which we now know it's not. It wasn't. It was less than the flu, always has been, new peer-reviewed science. And so they go, but we're going to rush through the safety trial because we need to get this in front of you fast. How does anybody stand back and go, no safety for our safety? Like, we can't be this dumb. I don't think that many people fell for that. Seriously. But a lot of people did. What's that?
No, I just love that. No safety for our safety.
Have you talked about the Jamie Foxx thing on your show?
Briefly yesterday. That was the only time I got into it. And he had a stroke. And he was involved with a lot of places that, he's almost certainly injected, and he was on sets that demanded being injected, but stars get different treatment. So, you never know, but I'm sure there's somebody out there that's probably already proven that he was. Either way, this conversation, I now line up with Malhotra and McCullough on this. I don't know for sure. And we should always be like, well, unless we have the evidence that, that he was injected and that's what caused it, whichever, blah, 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 that we don't know for sure. But until proven otherwise, this is a logical conclusion. That was most likely the injection. That's what these high-level cardiologists are telling us, that we should assume every one of these are vaccine caused until proven otherwise. These are two of the leading people in this field in the world, and people are dismissing that. So I think that's what caused it. Erdogan also just had a myocardial infarction. He had 3 shots in his body. Now he's a little bit older too. So is Jamie Foxx. But my opinion is that I don't know if every one of these are, but I think the vast majority of what we're seeing are definitely connected to the injection. That's my opinion.
So are they just waiting for the commercial?
What? Oh, the injury commercial?
Yes. If you or a loved one taking the COVID-19 vaccine,
we're about 20 years out from that.
2020.
Oh, I don't have it on me. I have a really great video for that. Like, I remember that. I forget where I had put that. Like the joke about, what was it now? Like exactly that. It was like a PSA for like justifying all the bad things, but it's okay. I got to find that because that's exactly the point.
If you want to dig for it, I have a clip of the Breakfast Club where they're discussing the Jamie Foxx thing. I saw a picture that Dr. McCullough posted where he's standing with Jamie Foxx. And he's, and he tags him in the tweet and he's like, hey man, here's hoping, not going to say it, but you know what I'm talking about, But at this point, you're correct. There were just too many different sets that he worked on where they were demanding jabby jab.
Right.
Jamie Foxx reportedly had to be revived during terrifying medical crisis. The insiders share he is very lucky to be alive. More information has been revealed about Jamie Foxx's medical condition. As we know, on April 12, Jamie's daughter announced that he was hospitalized, and then was reported that Jamie suffered a stroke and had several complications, including not being able to speak. Now, reports from a source says that doctors needed to revive him during the medical scare. The source says Jamie suffered a serious medical episode and needed immediate attention. It was touch and go for a few days with him, and he had to be revived. He is very lucky to be alive. He also said that he suffers from high blood pressure,
Yikes.
which doctors say can cause clots in the brain leading to a stroke. Doctors believe this was a long time coming and really had to act fast. And if they didn't, they said he could have been a goner. So we're going to be sending love and prayers to Jamie and his family.
That's right. Definitely sending healing energy to Jamie Foxx. 55 years old. That's young, man. That's why you got to watch all of that when you get to a certain age. If you was born in the 1900s, you know, you get to a certain age, you got to take care of yourself. High blood pressure, high cholesterol.
Not even when you get to a certain age, you should check yourself regardless. I know
absolutely
brothers in their 30s that are passing away over high blood pressure, overweight, or heart problems, heart disease, and all that. So definitely listen to your body. I heard Tony Braxton say that yesterday. Listen to your body.
That's right.
Oh, well, if Tony Braxton said it,
then it's definitely law. God damn.
You're muted, brother.
Notice it didn't even say the word stroke.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Somehow you're a little quieter, so I can't. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Oh, I'm sorry. Jamie Foxx. If you know Jamie Foxx, I'm a huge Jamie Foxx fan. Like, I've been in love with him since I was a child, when it was very inappropriate. And I will fall on this man's casket if he dies this year. I have sent text messages to my friends, very close friends, in the last 2 weeks when I first heard he had a stroke, and I said, "Hey, if Jamie Foxx dies this year, we're going to that funeral. I'm falling on that casket." Okay, that is a high honor in the Black community, is to have someone fall out in the casket. If he gets buried, I'm falling in the hole. Okay. But I just listening to that and knowing Jamie Foxx. So why I believe it's the jab, and it hurts and it breaks my heart. Still gonna fall on this casket, but it breaks my heart, is because he has been getting ready for this Mike Tyson documentary for 3.5 years. He's in the best shape of his life right now. Like, amazing shape. Going to the gym constantly training with Mike, constantly seeing Mike. And I know this on 2 different fronts. So to hear that this man just up and dropped from a stroke, what are you talking about?
That's a good point. So if he's like possibly the best shape of his life, that would be the least likely time he would have a heart problem, right?
Thank you.
But
your
not,
diet is different, everything.
Yeah, not always. I mean, there are just always being objective, irritatingly so. You know, there is probably a percentage in there where you can have an example of something that would cause that, even though you're in very good health. You know, whatever, like arteries, and I don't even know. I'm not a doctor in that regard, but I agree with you. I think that it's quite obvious what this is based on a lot of different factors. And one thing that stands out the most to me, and again, these are just superficial points. There could be other reasons for it, but why didn't they say the word stroke? That's what happened. We know that now, but weird that they don't want to say that word. On top of it, that when it comes out at a time when we already know at some level that this was a stroke because it was already released, that these mainstream articles are going, we just don't even know what's going on. Like the headline literally in quote says, we're still confused about what's happening. It's like, why is that the focal point? So he collapsed, he got hurt. And I think we all know they're going over, they're falling all over themselves to point in insinuate any way other than the injection is the point.
Do you remember when "we don't know" was suddenly the leading cause of death in Canada for like a month or two?
Yeah.
They're like,
baffling.
And they released that as their official findings. We don't know. And then suicide, legally assisted suicide was right up there as a number 2 or 3 cause of death. And so
crazy, man. You know why it's different in the United States? Because they don't put down "we don't know." They just call it SIDS or SADS or any number of catch-all categories that they literally are defined by "we don't know what caused this." But yet we don't tell people that. SIDS is sudden adult death syndrome. The other one is sudden infant death syndrome. That sounds like something. Guess what? When you look these up, it literally says "we don't know." Like literally, that means we don't understand what caused this, but we'll categorize it here. And that just became a diagnosis. What doctor says this is SIDS? That's telling them we have no clue what's happening. But the people, that is mind blowing. The doctors know they're being manipulative, don't they?
Yes, of course. Of course. The Hippocratic Oath is manipulative. Persuading you all the time, and then some other dude comes in with a way bigger check and goes, so you know that thing you signed in the beginning?
Okay,
we're gonna pay you to forget that. We're gonna pay you to forget it tomorrow. Work for us.
I'm gonna have to break off here in a second, guys, but I think that this is it's really important. It's really important that this, not only the whole nanotechnology overlap, but just the idea that high level people are being hurt at this point. And it's not just them. I mean, it's been a lot of them, right? It's been a lot of big, remember like Damar Hamlin, people are going, oh, this is going to change everything. And it should in an honest world where you have somebody at that high of a level, at that peak condition, at that age, who suddenly has that problem, and now we just kind of pretend it was commotio cordis. It wasn't. Every high level in person that's involved in that's like, yeah, that's not even like, it's not, he had the padding, it didn't hit the right spot, it's a larger ball, the shoulder pad, it's nonsense, right? And yet that just floated that. And even Damar Hamlin has kind of pushed away from even engaging with what the doctor told him. And I'm not even going to talk about that, he said. So obviously the doctor told him something other than that. So the point is that we have people like Jamie Foxx. We've got people like, people on live TV on broadcaster chairs. We've got heads of state, multiple people in Africa that just disappear because they don't want to just, my God, man. I mean, if we can dismiss all of this, either means that we have already been the majority for a long time and we just don't see it yet, or we're losing. I go with the former personally, but it's positive as always. I think we're literally controlling the narrative right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do. Before you get out of here, what you got going on today?
A bunch. I got 2 articles I need to get up, which is the one I was talking about, Matt's, which is going to be really interesting. He's got 2 of them actually. And then Derek's got an article that is focused on the update of the fluoride trial, I believe. And then I've got to get a show out. And then I've got, I've got this great meetup we've been going to on Tuesdays that I think it's called Make Americans Free Again. And I just love it. It's a local group here, but I just love that it's a group that
I want to talk to the organizers of that.
It's nonpartisan, which I love. I know everyone there has their own opinions, but it's kind of adamant about that, that we're here to discuss truth and dissect and discuss. Nothing's off the table. And, that I respect that, that's where we have to be today.
Heck yeah. All right, brother. Well, thelastamericanvagabond.com. all that stuff, and then everywhere else. We'll see you soon, brother. Thanks for popping in.
I was gonna say, nice meeting you. And I keep saying I'll eventually be on the show there. The Blunt Force will be fun. Make that happen.
Heck yeah.
All right, guys. Have a good one. See you next week.
Take care. Ryan Cristian, everybody.